I'm Haley from Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., a podcast member of the GonnaGeek network, just like the one you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual. Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
This is it. The part of your week where you get to put your headphones on, relax, and listen to a bunch of geeks geek out about geeky things. They're passionate.
Did you know Magic Mike XXL is actually on the top 25 list of this year's best movie?
They're witty.
He loves him some Katy Perry because she kissed a girl and she liked it.
They're crazy.
I like Nickelback personally, but, I'm the fuddy-duddy who likes episode 1.
And sometimes I leave you wondering, what the
I'm pretty sure that here we were starting the hashtag movement, bring back Slave Feral.
Welcome to the GonnaGeek.com podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 132 of the official GonnaGeek.com podcast. My name is Stephen John Drew, and with me today is Stargate Pioneer.
Bring back Slave Feral. Bring back Slave Feral. Bring back Slave Feral. Bring back Slave Feral. Bring back Slave Feral.
We also have the elusive Chris Farrell.
Nobody wants that. Nobody.
And wrapping us up there, rounding us off, telling us how much more superior he is to the rest of us, we have JS. What's up, JS?
Hey, what's up?
I couldn't help but notice that you have some form of interesting Easter egg behind your right shoulder tonight. Is that the red sun?
If you've looked at the video for the last, month and a half, there's been an Easter egg in the back every day.
Well, we do enjoy it. We do enjoy it, but I thought that I would break that Easter egg to the audience so that they could start paying attention a little bit, because us in the know have been in the know for a few weeks now. So I just thought I would share with the rest of the audience because I like it each week.
So you mean you ruined the surprise for people that weren't paying attention?
They can go back. They can attempt to go back.
Do they get a prize if they correctly identify all of the Easter eggs?
They get the prize that they identify all the Easter eggs. Congratulations. Your reward is, we live in a world where everything needs to be rewarded. Why not just reward yourself with the fact that you've identified them all?
Or we could just go with the fact that the gift of hearing JS is enough of a gift.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
It is. Well,
every week.
Let's go ahead. I'm waiting for the joke, but I'll just plow past that. Let's go ahead and move on into our news. Shall we do that?
You know who's been plowing lately?
Alrighty. So in news this week, we're going to go ahead and toss it over to the Chris Farrell for real. I believe this is part news and part rant. Chris, what do you got going on for your news this week?
It's mostly news because my ranting days, I need a break from them for a little bit. But I don't know if you guys had seen late last week and throughout the weekend, the hashtag RIP Twitter was trending. And if you'd seen why, it's because there was a story that BuzzFeed put out that basically said Twitter was going to add a modification to your timeline, I guess is the best way to put it, and model it pretty much after how Facebook is doing your new homepage, where they pretty much sort by what is the most important stories that you need to read, not, as a timeline. So needless to say, the internet blew up about that. Okay, so there are some folks that have been beta testing this feature for Twitter, and there was an article up on The Verge that said, here's basically the way you can explain the new timeline, which will be opt-in, we found out. It was not said originally in the BuzzFeed article that it was an opt-in feature, but I would remind you that the way the timeline is handled in Facebook was also opt-in at one point before they made it mandatory. So The Verge pretty much equates it to a Reddit homepage where it shows the most popular things first. They say when you scroll back up the feed, or the feed turns into a regular reverse chronology Twitter. So just your first view, and it's basically very similar to what you might be seeing now if you use the Twitter homepage or the Twitter app that is the what you have missed while you've been gone feature. But at the same time, most people use Twitter for chronology-based things. So if you just load your Twitter and you want to see, hey, what are people live tweeting about Agent Carter? You could potentially get spoiled, as it puts a giant spoiler up the top of it because, hey, here's what you missed and things like that. To me, it just seems like another example of Twitter thinking they know what the users want, which is not what the users want, because nobody really wants them to turn into the next Facebook. I mean, there's also been other rumors they want to give you like 10,000 character tweets now in some cases, things like that. They're struggling to find ways to try and monetize, bring in different crowds, and make more money. I just don't see this as being the route. Now, like I said earlier, at least it is rumored to be opt-in. Twitter semi-confirmed that in this article in The Verge, but we don't know how long it will stay opt-in, nor what the impact will be to some third-party Twitter clients with the Twitter API. And those are pretty much my concerns with it, because I don't use the official Twitter app for anything, because it's garbage.
Fair point, I guess.
I'm hurt. I'm stabbed in the heart. Oh. Listen, I use the regular Twitter app on my iPhone because I went through a phase of trying to use third-party apps, and none of them ever did everything I needed to do. So I just said, screw it. I'm just going to go with the normal app. And I get the point, by the way, that if you don't want to get spoiled on something, it's going to come up. However, I follow some very active Twitters or people with Twitter accounts or organizations with Twitter accounts, and I don't have a chance to watch Twitter all day. So I do like the feature that says while you were gone or what you missed while you were away or whatever. So I do like that for my use case. Now, no, not everybody will, but I do. And then as long as it's linear after I get into it, and if I'm in a live tweet environment or whatever, that's great. But other than that, I'm fine with it. But again, I'm the fuddy-duddy that likes episode 1. So I'm a little weird.
Your point's not invalid. It's just Suncast kind of brings up a point that I was thinking in the chat room. He said, as long as they don't end up like Facebook, where even though you select most recent, it goes back to whatever order Facebook thinks is important. The problem I have here is it is a slippery slope, and we've seen how Twitter kind of wants to make themselves be Facebook-like lately. I don't want it to be that this is my default view of things, because I go to Twitter for a timeline of things. If I missed something, I'll find it as I scroll through things if I really want to. I don't need them to call out and tell me, here's the things you might have missed. No, I'll find them. It's a timeline. It makes more sense to me if it goes chronologically through time.
Okay, so I actually agree with what you said there, Chris, because I personally hate the way that Facebook does that. And I was a very, very, very avid Facebook timeline browser until they made that change. And I don't know if you remember, but it went through a period where you could basically not get back on certain platforms the most recent. And then they brought it back for good reason. But I do not like it how every time I log in, I have to see which mode am I in today and then select the one that I want. I do like the chronological order. I thought that the way that they had it now, where you could still get to the what you missed section was, or the highlights or whatever you want to call it, was a great idea. So I probably will be the type of person that actually turns that off.
You actually still use Twitter?
Do you want to know where I use Twitter?
I use Twitter.
That's the first rule of Twitter. You don't talk about using it in that special room.
Exactly. But
this is an attempt for Twitter to try to grasp at straws to revive itself. It's done. I'm sorry. I mean, why would you even read Twitter? Why would you read Twitter? Just read Reddit. A million times better.
Because then I get to think of you fine people when I am thinking of my fine self.
It depends also on who you follow in Twitter. You can kind of build what your circle is of what it is you want to see. Like, I follow people who talk about things I care about more. I'm not a big Reddit guy, though, I'll be honest, so I don't know as much there.
You can do it on you can do that on Reddit too.
You could also do it on Google Plus, but is anyone using that?
I still do. I use Google Plus.
I use Google Plus for dedicated technology areas, right? Google Plus has actually shut down a lot of the communities, and it will continue to do so until they make it so untenable that nobody's going to be using it anymore. Let's face it, it's going to the junk heap. But it is good for what it is, and I'm glad I still can use it, and I hope I can still use it for the groups that I'm in right now anyway. But as far as the Twitter thing, I mean, I don't have time to scroll through it. I really don't, because I'm working all day. I don't have the phone with me while I'm working. So I get home and I've missed like a gazillion tweets. Like, I'm not going to unfollow people just because they tweet during the day, but I'm not going to read everything there either. It's just not feasible for me.
Well, I like I said, for me personally, I've been liking the way that it does the timeline thing, and it is all chronological. So I personally don't see myself opting to keep into this new timeline formula, whatever the hell you want to call it. But I don't know. We'll see. I guess maybe I'll be like, oh my God, this saves Twitter, but I doubt it.
And Reddit, you have to subscribe to each individual area in order to read it, right? There's no one big stream of Reddit that I've ever found. Of course,
Reddit.com.
And it streams everything as it's posted?
It does, but what goes to the top is what's pushed to the top, right? So do you guys understand the principle of Reddit?
Yes, I do understand that aspect.
Okay, so everything's there. Just go to reddit.com, but what you're going to see to the top is what people push to the top, right?
Right, so it's not a true timeline.
Well, okay, I understand what you're saying, but because of the nature of what it is, if it's something important, people are going to push it to the top, right? So your grandmother going to the washroom is not going to make it to the first page.
And the big thing is it's user curated on Reddit. That is the users saying, hey, we think this is something cool. We want to push this up. Whereas Twitter's algorithm, from what I understand, is based off of, in part, what people in your what people that you follow and who follow you think is important and stuff like that. It's not necessarily everyone you follow being like, oh my God, you have to see this, like it would be on Reddit.
That's true. But I mean, you can filter Reddit, right? But I get what you're saying, but I don't know. Maybe I just don't use Twitter. I don't, to be honest. But
it mostly intrigues me because it's another example of Twitter just trying to reach out and try and change something that has nothing to do with what their users are asking for. Their users are asking for better ways to report people for abuse and things like that, and ways to clean up the product. They're not caring about 10,000 character tweets or a curated timeline, a algorithm-based timeline that tells you what Twitter thinks is the most important stuff you've missed. That's not what people are clamoring for.
They're just, I think they're in big trouble. Big trouble.
I don't know. I think that, well, okay, I think they are in big trouble from the way things are going, but I will say this, that even though I don't like this feature, I like that Twitter is doing something, because that shows me that they are trying to survive.
Yeah, they're throwing crap against a wall to see what sticks, but it's not good crap.
Well, time will tell. Time will tell, because obviously us three here, or at least you and I, Chris, didn't really like the whatever you want to call it, the top posts or whatever the mode is on Facebook. We didn't really like that much, but it has stuck. So there must be some people who do like that, or they would have stripped that feature. So who knows? Maybe we'll see the same thing with Twitter.
We'll see. Is Twitter doomed to fail? I don't know. I mean, it still is a reasonable platform. It has its uses, though. It's not Facebook, although Facebook's turned into something like, okay, let's throw 3 sentences out there and then a picture which may or may not have a meme on it. And that's what Facebook is. So it's a cross between Twitter and Instagram, really, now.
So on the Facebook anniversary or whatever that was that they started giving us those Friends videos, I decided to go and nobody responded. I put Stephen John Drew is throwing it back. And that's all I left it at, to remind us all of the times that we used to have to put is on everything. And nobody responded. I was so heartbroken.
You know why no one responded, right?
Because nobody got it?
Because that was dumb.
Shut up. Fine, I'm moving on to my news just because you've had enough on your news and I'm doing this in protest. So in my news, I am going to talk about Apple's Area 53. That was a little joke, but it was a terrible joke. That's right. If you have heard of this, well, if you haven't, I'm going to tell you about it. What it is there is an error on iDevices called Error 53. Now, many users are reporting that this has come up recently and is becoming quite the problem. Essentially, it's bricking phones and tablets and all that stuff. So what is Error 53? Apparently, the root cause is unauthorized repairs, like non-Apple authorized repairs on devices. Now, at first you might go and you might shake your head a little bit and go, come on, Apple, come on. People should be able to repair their phone however you want. But where it stems from is the fingerprint sensor. And if there is a non-Apple part fingerprint sensor in there. Now, I can see why people are up in arms because all of a sudden they've had to fix their device for whatever known reason. They've taken it somewhere, someone's fixed it, and now it's bricked. Well, think of the flip side. This is almost a safety precaution so that if someone takes your phone, flips out the parts for something that's been compromised, like the fingerprint sensor, which, I don't know, that's a little extreme, but it could happen, then they can go and do whatever they want and make whatever payments. So that's essentially what it is Apple is trying to protect Apple Pay primarily. So if someone gets your phone and then they're like, oh, well, I guess what we can do is make all these payments by swapping out this fingerprint sensor to one that's been compromised that says, hey, go ahead, go. That's what it's trying to protect.
That's not how the sensor works, though. It doesn't matter the sensor. It's all about the algorithm and how it matches to your fingerprint that's stored securely on the phone. The sensor doesn't matter.
Okay, but the idea, and this is obviously Apple has you guys strategically made their press release on this, but I think the idea is that if you can compromise the fingerprint sensor in a way that goes around those security methods, like then essentially the world's your oyster for that device.
Do you know how the fingerprint sensor doesn't work that way?
I know it doesn't, but that's what they're saying that it is.
It's complete trash. It's because it's really, really hard as somebody who has changed the iPhone 6 screen 6 and 6 Plus. I can tell you right away, it's complete rubbish. It's just that it's most people when they change the screen on the 6 and the 6P, the most of the time the fingerprint reader gets damaged. It's complete crap, dude. It's not the fingerprint reader that memorizes or keeps the information of your fingerprint. It's the phone. So you can't circumvent it. I mean, it seems like such an effort for no reason. This is just an excuse for Apple to control the quality again.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and read it out here, what their exact phrasing is, so everybody can make their own assumptions, not based off of me, but off of what they say. And I'm not saying I agree with it, but I do want to read it directly. It is, if iOS finds a mismatch, the check fails and Touch ID, including for Apple Pay use, is disabled. This security measure is necessary to protect your device and prevent a fraudulent Touch ID sensor from being used. So that's the basis of their explanation. And quite frankly, I actually agree with you guys on it. I think that it is a bunch of BS. I can see why they're like weird tangent of a theory can justify this, but I don't buy it. Like I really don't.
What they have said is factually true. It ensures you cannot use a fake sensor, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, for those that don't know, Apple is using, I believe, an authentic fingerprint sensor, which was a long-standing biometric device vendor that had been out there for a while. They had a pretty good reputation. They've integrated that into the iPhone. They bought them out. So it's not as though someone is taking the fingerprint sensor off their Samsung Galaxy S6 and embedding that in an iPhone. No, they're probably putting in another authentic sensor or repairing the one that's broken, stating that they ensure you don't use a different sensor to make sure your Apple Pay stuff is not compromised is ridiculous BS, because the templating and things like that is done by an algorithm that is stored on the phone. It's sensor agnostic, basically. You could use any sensor as long as you're using the right algorithm on that phone.
The reason that, by the way, the reason they do this is one of their simplest way of detecting if people are changing hardware or putting third-party hardware. It's complete control.
I agree, and I am, however, very, very curious about the resident iPhone user, SP. I want to know, as the resident iPhone user here, what are your thoughts on this? Does this make you more comfortable, less comfortable? Meh.
All right, so there is one button on the face of this thing, as a lot of phones. I mean, iPhone was like this for a while, but there's one button, one that you click on to get a variety of different things happening, get into your home screen, whatever. It wears out. If you have this phone for 2 or 3 years, you use it a lot, and you are taking pictures, you're double clicking that, you're using the button to start the phone, which you can, it's going to wear out. And to have to go to Apple to get it fixed is absolutely asinine. I
better get your Apple Care.
Well, no, I'm talking like after the 2 years are up. I spent 6 months nursing my iPhone 4S. I had it apart about 6 times, replacing a battery, replacing this, replacing that, and mostly it was buttons that had failed, just to get it to the point where I could then buy this, which is an iPhone 6 Plus. At some point in time, I'm going to be trying to extend the life of this thing until I can get the next generation of whatever. And I have the tools, I have the knowledge, I can go in there. It's all on YouTube anyway. This is not rocket science. It is fine electronics work, but you buy the pieces, you buy the official button, and you put it in there. I mean, come on. That's just ridiculous.
They've actually, I mean, like I said, we service these phones at the office. They've actually made that button. It's obvious the engineering behind the button is to detect screen tampering. They lose so much business. They really do. They lose business of breaking screens. That's why I think now, if I'm not mistaken, if you break your screen on your iPhone, you can pay $100 or $200 now, or $199, and just get your phone replaced. I don't know if you guys have that in the States, but in Canada,
I think that's part of Apple Care or something like that. I don't
possible,
recall,
yeah.
But the argument that they're making sure you don't have a bogus sensor in there that can compromise you, it's kind of BS there, because this is a closed platform. It's not like they can hook something else into your phone to then take your templated fingerprint image and send it somewhere else. Just saying.
Well, yeah, like I said, I see why they are quoting or citing the Touch ID as the reason for this, because I think that there is enough mislogic in people's logic to fall for it. But to me, I don't know. I thought maybe I was being a little too reactive here, seeing that Apple has irritated me so much in the past. But to hear you so frustrated, or not frustrated, but passionate about the subject, SP, just makes me smile.
They're by the way, they released a statement clearly because so many people have been complaining that their phones are getting bricked, and they're saying, well, the phone's only getting bricked because it's a security reason. It's there to protect you. That sounds like the reason why we take off our shoes at the airport.
Well, and see, here's another kicker on this one too, is this didn't start happening until the recent iOS 9.1 update or something like that, where they started saying, oh, your sensor's been replaced, you get Air 53 now. So it's new. If this is a security feature, why haven't you carried up until now?
Fair point.
Hey, people run in, in Apple's defense, if this turns out to be a legitimate hack into the phone, right? Because we might not know all of the answers behind it. As we discussed in previous podcasts, when we're talking about vulnerabilities. These companies don't have to tell us everything if it is a infrastructure sort of thing, and they might consider cell phones infrastructure now. I don't know. But if it is a particular hack that they haven't released all the information about it, I could see why this sort of concern is out there. But as we progress into a more connected world and everything, we're going to see all this happen. And some of it's going to be Patriot Act-esque and Snowden-esque, and some of it's going to be legitimate. And it's hard to tell right now. It really is. And I don't know if we'll ever will be, because if they're veiling under the secrecy cloak of what the vulnerability really is, then how are we ever going to really know?
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I think we've harped on Apple enough on this, so let's go ahead and move on to our last news point, which is going to be SP doing it.
All right. So I bring the space to the podcast, right? I bring the rocket science to the podcast. And last week, it's kind of slipped under the radar a little bit because the major outlets didn't pick it up. They might have not have considered it to be such a big thing, especially with the Super Bowl coming on, a lot of Super Bowl news and stuff like that. And what happened was Lockheed actually delivered their Orion Exploration Mission 1, or EM1 capsule, the first production level capsule, to Kennedy Space Center. Now, this is where all the final assembly is going to take place with the Orion flights and the Orion hardware as we go into the future. So they still have to do a lot of final assembly. They still have to do a lot of testing. And there's some test flights coming up. Matter of fact, 2018, they're going to send this around the moon. Right now is the schedule in a very elliptic or far out lunar orbit. So it's going to be out there for about 3 weeks, and it's going to be out there farther than any human spacecraft has been before. No humans are going to be in there. That's just the test plan right now. So the fact that this piece of hardware has been delivered to Kennedy Space Center and they're doing final assembly, final checks on it as it goes through final testing is phenomenal in the evolution of human spaceflight. So I am excited to see what this brings forward.
That's very cool. Very, very cool. And I am happy to see things moving forward with space exploration again. I feel like we stalled for so long. I've talked about this before, so I won't harp on it too much, but stories like this just make me smile, because when I was younger, being so into sci-fi and seeing the progress that we were making in North America was like, you know what? We're headed that way. And for like 5 to 10 years, I felt like maybe we're not. Maybe we are just status quo for the rest of my life. And now things are kicking up again, and I love this. I think that it's great.
This is potentially a piece of hardware that is going to bring humanity to Mars. Don't know if it will or not, but it potentially is. So there you go. Now, not this particular piece of hardware, but they'll make more and we'll launch more. I think we're getting more into the on reusable stuff. I know we harped on the Falcon 9 rocket landing back down and stuff like that, but I think we're at the point where human capsules are going to be one and done. You're going to send them out, they're going to do their job, and then that's it. They're not going to go for a second trip or whatever, like the space shuttle. So we'll see. I mean, it's all money, right? So the cost of rehabbing a space shuttle is just extraordinarily large. So let's just keep it simple. Let's keep it cost effective as much as we can anyway, and go for it. So, hey, it's pretty cool. JS, you want to go to Mars, right?
Yeah, I guess. I'm a huge supporter of maybe going to Venus, actually. I think Venus is a better place for us to go.
You just want that because there's a built-in theme song. That's why.
It's closer. It's faster to get there. It's more survivable for us. Obviously, not the
more
surface.
Survivable.
Yeah, man. It doesn't take as much to survive in. Obviously, not at the surface level of Venus, but at the cloud level of Venus. If you do, and I'm sure you're aware of this, the cloud, the temperature is steady around 70 Celsius, which is a lot. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, you could still survive there. Whereas for Mars, there's so many factors that can kill us. There's no, the atmosphere is too thin. There's no magnetic, or the magnetic shielding is too low. There's just too many variables where I think Mars is. It's a beautiful place. It's the planet that looks the most like Earth. But I think there are better options for us. And I do think Venus is. You can do some research on it. There's a lot of people who are pro-Venus as well. And obviously we don't have anything to live on Mars yet. So that can't be used as an excuse. Well, but I mean, Venus, if we have a cloud city in Venus, to me, the cloud city in Venus option is better.
Interesting.
I've never heard of this before, JS. Honestly, I think that's great, and I have no words because I've never heard of this before. But I believe you that there's a lot of people out there, because why would you make that up? So
I've heard of it. I just think that they're the same sort of people that think the Earth is flat, because it's not feasible. Eventually. Okay,
Mars isn't feasible either.
JS this. Well, and I talked about that before. I think Mars is going to kill a lot of people at the beginning, at least, or maybe always. But to depend on staying afloat in the cloud layers I don't think is ever going to be feasible. It's like a helicarrier, in Marvel. At some point in time, those turbofans are going to fail, and that thing's going down, and you're going to kill everybody on board. So
sure, the same you can say the environmental any environmental system on Mars can fail, and you'll insta die, like you'll boil. I mean, we can't even go to the Mars. So to use the explanation that's just ludicrous. Going to Mars right now is ludicrous. We can't do it. We've been trying for 70 years.
I want my lunar colony. That's what I want. I want my lunar colony.
I also want to say, they don't talk about this, but do you know how many probes have been lost trying to get to Mars and Mars moons? Not an easy place.
Actually, I do. Well, yeah, right, because we tried to do it really cheaply, and we ended up bombing Mars because there was miscalculations, there was this, there was that. These probes were being built on the cheap while Mars was spending, or while NASA and the space agencies were spending a lot of money doing other things, like the International Space Station, the shuttle fleet, that sort of thing. So there's a reason why a lot of those Martian probes crashed, because there wasn't a lot of money actually spent on them that should have been. And I think as we focus more on Mars, I think the journeys there and back, at least technologically, with the mechanics, with the machines, are going to get a lot easier. It's space. Something could go wrong in space at any time. So nothing's a sure thing. I'll grant you that.
I think both planets right now are a far reach, and I do think, again, the problem will be money, the problem will be time, the problem will be technology. I don't think we should just focus on one planet. Again, Mars obviously is the most favorite. I'm not saying, I mean, Venus is the hottest planet in our solar system, due to the greenhouse effects. It's not the most perfect planet, but neither is Mars. That's a lot of, you can't just walk on Mars. I mean, we all have seen The Martian, and it looked so easy, but it isn't. It really isn't.
Well, especially when you throw in the idea that what happens when somebody on the spaceship gets error 53. So, that's going to happen, right?
Yes, it will.
Oh, well, thank you very much for this story here, SP. And I think it's a topic we got to spend more time on in the future. What is the future of exploration in space? And I I think that's something we should dedicate a majority of an episode to at some point, because I think it could be a lot of fun to talk about. So
I agree. And I'll just add, before we start thinking of like colonizing Mars and colonizing Venus and so on and so forth, we should probably test on our backyard and go back to the moon. We haven't been back to the moon. And I think
to the moon, or you mean arrive at the moon?
We got a secret moon base you guys don't know. Oh, sorry, SP. I wasn't supposed to talk about SNASA Directive 310.
I don't want to talk about SNASA. I want to talk about this fictitious cloud city on Venus.
Alrighty, well,
it's not as far-fetched as
before these two end up ripping off each other's heads. Let's go ahead and move on to this week's Geek Back. Shall we do that?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Alrighty, so in the Geek Back this week, we are going, it's actually a multi-part Geek Back. What we've got going on this week is a follow-up to the prior episode. If we had a time travel machine, we could look back to episode 131. The chat will support me.
So now we're all about specificity on the GonnaGeek.com podcast.
When did that happen?
I said specifically.
Not a Canadian business. Burger King is incorporated in Miami, Florida, people.
All right, so everybody is at 0, and somebody can do the market research on that. We expect Neil to chime in next week, telling us all about how Burger King is now located out of Toronto for tax credit purposes and owns Tim Hortons. So what do you think? You guys think that we got a response from Neil?
I'm guessing we did. Otherwise, you would not have flashed us back.
Yeah, we got a response from Neil. So let's find out what Neil has to say and fill us in here on the Burger King fiasco.
Steven, Neil here, coming to you live from the GonnaGeek Financial News Desk. And I'm pretty sure you didn't even know we had one of those on the network. I'm here to answer your question about the ownership of Burger King and Tim Hortons that you posed on last week's podcast. It's a pretty interesting story, but it does take a while, so walk with me. Burger King was originally incorporated in Florida and pretty much spent most of its corporate life as a privately held company until it was taken public in 2002 by Goldman Sachs. It remained a publicly held company until about 2010, when a Brazilian private equity fund, 3G Capital, acquired a majority stake and took it private. Now, this is where it gets interesting. 4 years later, in 2014, Burger King announced that it would be buying Tim Hortons, the iconic Canadian coffee and donut brand, at a deal valued at over $11 billion US. That's like trillions of Canadian maple syrup loonies. And it closed in December of that year. Now, at the time of closing, a brand new company called Restaurant Brands International was incorporated in Oakville, Ontario, and both Tim Hortons and Burger King were made subsidiaries of the new Canadian company. As soon as the transaction closed, Restaurant Brands International listed publicly on both the Toronto Stock Exchange and the New York Stock Exchange, making it a publicly held company. Now, following its public listing, the Brazilian private equity fund 3G Capital continued to own 51% of the new company. So in effect, both Tim Hortons and Burger King are held and owned primarily by a Brazilian company. Now, it's interesting that in order to approve the deal, the Canadian antitrust regulators stipulated that both Burger King and Tim Hortons would be required to maintain their own original corporate offices in both Toronto and in Florida. So leadership is still in both countries. You can't really say it's Canadian or US. Now, it's worth knowing that one of the largest shareholders of the remaining 49% of publicly trading shares is Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. So even if you exclude Brazilian ownership, I would still say that the majority of Restaurant Brands International is probably held by U.S. investors. I hope that answers your question about whether Tim Hortons owns Burger King and if it's a Canadian or U.S. company. I'm sorry, Stephen. We're just getting some information that the price of oil has fallen again. And what that means for Canadian podcasters is the price of gear and comics is going to go through the roof again. We'll be back when we have more information on this breaking story. Back to you, Stephen.
So I believe the long story short there is that JS and I want you Americans to donate us money because we are poor. I think that's the majority. That's basically the moral of that story.
Send me all your monies.
I think that's why we have that big, huge wall along our northern border, is to keep all you crazy Canadians up there.
I don't know what you're talking about at all. I don't know if you've ever looked at a map, but what they actually did is they deforest the line. Did you ever look at it? Like, go Google Earth it. You'll see the border, where the border line is the separation between our both countries. They actually deforested and made it's empty, so that nobody can be held liable if something happens.
So one of the border crossings that I've used quite frequently is between International Falls and Fort Francis. And I don't know if you know, but there are two lumber mills basically on each side. And they're not lumber mills, they're paper mills. So it is one of the worst smelling border crossings I've ever experienced anywhere. It is so bad. You have to air your car out for like 2 weeks after you go through it. It's bad.
That's funny. But Neil, thank you very much for sending that to us. I knew you would do your research, and I think we figured out. Actually, I don't know. I'm lost. I got nothing. So
well, we didn't really figure out anything, because we do know that it is owned by separate people, but does ownership make it something that it is not? So, for example, what I'm trying to say is, because Burger King still has its head office in Miami, does it declare its income tax in the U.S.? That being said, if it declares its tax in the U.S., does that make it an American company?
So part of what had come up when this happened in America is a lot of people got upset because it was a tax shelter for Burger King, is how it was described, is that more of their the majority of their taxable income and stuff would now be going through Canada, not the United States. So there were a lot of Americans who then got outraged. I don't know if they did their research or not. My guess would be they didn't, who said, "Oh, I'm not eating Burger King now because all the money's going to the Canadians, not us Americans. Get back in the pile." I mean, that kind of stuff.
Let's get into our pickup trucks. Get our shotgun.
They took our jobs, that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know enough about it. That's what I remember hearing and seeing talked about on the news. But based off of the quality of American news, I'm never really sure whether it's true or not anymore.
Well, I believe our very own financial correspondent, Neil, because, I mean, who can argue with the suit and the tie? I mean, it's just true. It speaks validity. That's right true. There.
Did you see his art on the wall? He had some nice art.
He did. Yeah. You know where the GonnaGeek financial budget went? It went to the art in Neil's place.
We got to step up our game. Next week, we all need to wear suits in honor of Neil.
Yeah, I could do that.
There we go.
I'm cool with it.
We'll talk about that off air and see what we can work out. So
that's a no.
All right. Well, moving along into Geek Back this week, we have another question that we asked. You know, it's been a few weeks since Legends of Tomorrow made its premiere, so we posted on Facebook. Now that we've seen a few episodes, what are your thoughts about DC's Legends of Tomorrow? #GeekBack. So we posted on a few places, Facebook, Twitter, and we got a couple different responses. Starting us off here, we had Jonathan Courtwright say, "So far, a very solid and entertaining show. Only one gripe. They killed off And then I redacted that because
Thank you.
Don't know who hasn't watched it yet. So there was some form of frustration by Jonathan. It may or may not have been the Flash and Arrow. They might have killed off both of those characters on Legends of Tomorrow. Maybe they didn't. Who knows? Then we had Anthony Bachman say the show is damn entertaining, fun and full of action. Cold and Heatwave give it just the right amount of edge. Love it. And then on Twitter, we posted a poll using, the Twitter poll feature because we want to support our Twitter sphere. And I asked the same question, and the options were best in Arrowverse, which got 0%. The answer of love it got 75% of the votes. And then 25% of the votes went to it's okay, I guess. And of course, nobody said, why do I watch it? So that was the official Twitter poll put out by the GonnaGeek network and the official GonnaGeek.com podcast. So what are your thoughts for those who have watched Legends of Tomorrow? SP, let's start with you.
Sarah in white leather.
Do you got anything that holds a little more substance than that?
It's just a mashup. It's a fun mashup. You got a lot of fights, and you got story that moves along from fight to fight where they're all fighting at the same. It's like the Avengers scenes, right, in the movies where they're all fighting at the same time. They just haven't done, at least not that I've seen yet. They haven't done the slow-mo, where they're all doing the same thing around the item yet. I'm sure we'll get there, but yeah, it's just pure superhero fun. You got all these characters. You can't use them in the two main shows that they came from because you can only fit so many characters in each show. So let's do this little spinoff and let's have some fun, especially during the winter hiatus. I know there's going to be overlap. There is overlap, but hey, it's been fun and I enjoy it and I hope they do it again sometime.
Quick question. Sarah got Lazarus Pit, right?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yep. Okay, so here's my thoughts on it. I am really enjoying it. I think that it's fun. I think it's a show that you don't want to go and expect a hell of a storyline because so far, a little bit of repetition to me, but I'm still enjoying it. The only critiques that I have, which is a little backwards from some of the feedback that I'm seeing, to me, Snart, Captain Cold, and Sarah Lance both fall flat for me. I expected a lot better of those two characters, and there's several times that I find myself watching and being like, that doesn't seem right, or you should have had more here. So that's my only critiques I have are with those two characters, and I don't know what it is, but I still, at least I get to see them because I enjoyed seeing both of them in Arrow / The Flash, the respective universes. So I quite liked it, and I just wish that hit a little better for me. How about you, Chris?
Wow. I haven't had any problems with Captain Cold at all. I thought Wentworth Miller's been awesome.
See,
I mean, he's part of the ensemble, but...
No, I agree. I like Wentworth Miller. I'm not criticizing acting or anything. It's the writing for those two characters. I feel like they're not utilizing them to the degree that, basically to their potential.
Well, I think part of what happens, and I have caveat being I haven't watched the last episode, is it's an ensemble show. So from week to week, certain characters are going to suffer in comparison to others because it's very tough each week to focus equally on all 8 characters. So that might be part of what you're running into there, is that the focus really hasn't been greatly on Captain Cold and crew at this point. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't watched the most recent episode because I'm behind on things. I do equate this TV show to basically a summer popcorn movie in TV format. That's what it is. It's just you kick your feet back, eat some popcorn, relax, and you just have fun because it's an action adventure romp with some people you might learn to care about that you like. Like, I love that character. And other people are like, I don't like that character.
I love the 70s.
So Suncast brings up a great point in the chat. He goes, I think they're going to have to do something other than fighting Vandal Savage. That is something that I think could get old very quick. About the third episode, I was like, okay, a little old. But the thing is, I'm okay for the ride because it is a shorter series, and I'm interested I'm okay with that as the big plot point for this season. Let's put it that way. The other thing that I want to know
here
here
this season.
Sorry?
Yeah.
It might only be this season, if you believe some of the reports, is the fact that it's a very expensive show to make between the ensemble cast and the special effects budget. The rumor has been, if this show is going to get a second season, the ratings have to be through the roof because it's too expensive. Now, that hasn't been confirmed, obviously.
Gotcha. So here's the funny thing, though. You said you were an episode behind, or are you 2 episodes behind, Chris?
1 episode behind.
Are you really 1 episode behind, or are you 2 episodes behind, Chris?
Everyone is just 1 episode behind because I didn't see all of the most recent episode like you're about to brag about that you didn't actually see.
No, that's true. So what I'm getting at is apparently post the Superb Owl yesterday, we ended up in Canada. So here's where it gets all confusing. In Canada, the Canadian networks have rights to all of these American shows. The network that has rights to Arrow is CTV, and they're the ones that have rights to the Superb Owl. Now, here's where it gets weird. As you know, the Superb Owl was on CBS this year. Well, CBS decided that they were going to do a special live Colbert afterwards. CTV does not have the rights to Colbert, so they had to put their own post-Superb Owl programming in, and they decided that they were going to actually air this week's Legends of Tomorrow. So instead of on Thursday, they were going to place it on Sunday after the Superb Owl. Now, here's the thing. I didn't know this. I only realized it today when I went to my DVR and saw that it recorded, and then realized, of course, that the game preempted like all but 10 minutes of it. So I didn't have it set to record late. So I could tell you this, the first 10 minutes of this week's episode is great. I've seen it, but unfortunately I missed the rest of it because Canadian TV failed me again.
And Steven, you do know you're allowed to say the word Super Bowl, right?
I do, but I like to dodge it because it's fun. So
fair enough. Just making sure.
And by the way, I believe that term is SP's term. He's the one that called it the Superb Owl.
Actually, it was Naki 2 years ago on ATGN.
SP shaking his head.
It was not. What are you talking about? What kind of Canadian drugs are you on?
How much plastic surgery does Lady Gaga have? Oh my God.
How did we get here? All right. Well, that is going to take us to the end of Geek Back, but we would love to know what you have to think of Legends of Tomorrow. So please go ahead and give us a call at 567-343-GEEK. That's 567-343-4335. You can tweet us at GonnaGeek. Find us at facebook.com/GonnaGeek. And when all else fails, go to GonnaGeek.com. You will see everything there, including the videos directly to the show where you can chime in directly on the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/GonnaGeek. So please let us know what you have to say. And before we do wrap up tonight, SB wants to go ahead and take a moment to pimp the network. I have no cool Pimp the Network sound.
Yeah, so we got a lot of great shows on GonnaGeek.com, including Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Longbox Edition, where we talk about the week in comic book news, and TV shows all over the place. There's In Defense Of, talking about a specific in-depth topic every week. We've got Audibly Exquisite, talking about just your weekly geeky stuff. Don't forget about Legends Podcast, one of the founding members, and ATGN. So there's a lot of stuff. So just go to GonnaGeek.com, find all great geeky podcasts. There's great articles on there as well. And if you have an independent podcast and you are looking to join a network, go to GonnaGeek.com/about and fill out an application form. We will be glad to consider you to join the network.
For sure. We also want to take a moment here to plug how awesome the network is with a bunch of the upcoming summer, I was going to say winter, but the upcoming summer conventions that are happening here. It is convention season just around the corner, and we've got a variety of the GonnaGeekers checking out these conventions and representing. So there will be a more in-depth list that's coming up pretty soon, but we do have sort of initial impressions of where people are planning on heading. The first one, of course, being Chris and SP going where?
I'm not allowed to make the joke I want to make. So we'll be going to Chicago for C2E2. In addition to Cody will be there, Willie from ATGN, and also Naki.
Ooh, what a great convention.
Yeah, one day I'll get there. One day, except I looked this year to go, and JS, have you priced any airfare at all lately and realized how expensive it is for us right now?
I could actually drive, but I don't want to be in the car for like 16 hours.
I would consider it if I could drive, but the taxes in Canada to fly into the States were crazy before our dollar was crappy.
Mm-hmm. I went to C2E2 3 years ago, and the flight had cost me back and forth $300, which is really good.
It's not bad.
No, not bad at all. $300 Canadian, which is about like 50 cents for you guys. And then my hotel was really cheap too. And the flight from Montreal is really, really close. I think it's an hour and a half. If I'm not mistaken. It might be 3, actually. I might be confused.
So
But
me
it was-
personally,
it
I'm
was-
flying from Pittsburgh to Chicago. It's only going to cost me a little over $200, which isn't terrible.
Yeah, they make it cheap to get out of Pittsburgh because, nobody really wants to be there. But
Of course.
another place that people will be on the network next weekend. So as you're listening or watching this podcast as it comes out, if you don't catch the live version, Kier and Haley and Jay will be at Gallifrey 1 this weekend. And I know Kier and Haley will be doing a couple of panels. So if you want to see them, just check them out in their Doctor Who TARDIS geeky jerseys and you will know who they are.
Okay, so drive 13 hours, 17 minutes from my house. Airplane fare, $977.
It's insane. It's insane.
And by plane, it's about an hour and a half. Yeah, could you imagine that? It's $1,000. That's without taxes. That's $977. You got to add 15% to that. Another
Well,
$150.
when you have to unfreeze the fuel before you put it in the plane, it just adds a little bit to the cost.
It was actually, I think, 2 or 0 degrees 2 days ago here. It's normally minus 40 Celsius,
Crazy.
of course.
Crazy.
People were wearing like t-shirts outside.
That's fantastic.
Just moving along in the list here a little bit. We also have Adam. Adam Nelson is from Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Long Box Edition. He will be at MegaCon May 26th to 29th. Now, this is actually a con that's been on my radar for a long time. Back when I did Fanboy Buzz, we actually did a couple of awards shows there. So we actually gave out some comic book related awards and did them there. I've seen a few contacts since go to MegaCon pretty much annually. And it is a very nice convention. And just basically, all I can say is if you're in the area, I encourage you to check it out because it's a really good convention. And if I remember, pretty affordable too. So MegaCon is May 26th to 29th. And then the last one that we have checking in at this time, because I'm sure we'll get more people as the months go on, but we have Cody Goff from Game Life Balance US. He says that John and him will be at Gen Con August 4th through 7th. So very, very cool to see all of the GonnaGeek Network representing around. And if you are listening to the show and you're going to be at a convention, please hit us up. Let us know where you're going to be because you never know. Maybe one of the network members will be there, or maybe it will be a deciding factor for them to go. So let us know where you're going to go to this year because con season is right around the corner and there's a ton of fun to be had. But that is going to go ahead and wrap us up for episode 132. So we will go around and promote whatever we want to promote. I will start off by just promoting Stargate Pioneer, Chris Farrell, and JS. You guys are amazing people, and I just want to acknowledge that right now. Thank you guys. SP, you got anything you want to plug?
Yeah, as always, I just want to thank you as being the network owner and for making this such a great place to be, not just for us here on the GonnaGeek podcast, but for all the 19 or 20 or so podcasts that we have on the network and everybody that contributes to the blog. You are what makes this possible. It just doesn't happen out of thin air. It's a lot of hard work. It's a little bit of money, and we really appreciate you taking care of us.
Well, thank you for that. Very kind. Very, very kind. Chris, you got anything you want to plug?
Well, actually, it's going to sound like we're all kissing your butt tonight, but I was going to give a thanks to Steven for all of the work you've done on the video production for the live GonnaGeek.com podcast. If you go back to what it was like when we first started doing this to where it is today, it is a world of difference, and that is because Steven has taken upon himself to make it better and make it more presentable week after week. So thank you for making it look so good. I think it looks better than some of the stuff we see out there, especially stuff that's just straight up Google Hangouts stuff. You have made something very cool.
Your $20 will be in the mail, guys. So there you go. No, seriously,
if it's Canadian dollars, if it's Canadian dollars, it won't be worth a stamp.
Ah, crap. Good point.
Thank you for that, though. Seriously, that's very kind of you. Very kind of you. JS, you got anything you want to plug?
Nope. Nothing new.
Awesome. Well, there we go. We've hit the music part of episode 132 of the official GonnaGeek.com podcast. We plugged it 100 times tonight, but check out GonnaGeek.com. Lots of great shows. So for episode 132, I'm Stephen John Drew.
I'm Pumpy Monkey Baby.
I'm director of Cloud City.
And I'm the French Canadian sensation.
Puppy Monkey Baby! Puppy Monkey Baby! Puppy Monkey Baby! Bye!
From everyone here at the GonnaGeek.com podcast, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. We encourage you to send your feedback by email to podcast@GonnaGeek.com. You can find all of our show history at GonnaGeek.com/official podcast. And while you're there, why not head over and check out all of the geeky podcasts on the GonnaGeek Network. The music heard on this show is by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next week.